Previously on Revelator Aggregator, learned that the Apocryphal book, 2nd Esdras, is most likely some hoogie-boogie Gnostic foolishness. Also, I believe I misspoke when I was discussing the interpretation section in chapter 12, wherein the apocalyptic vision that Ezra, quote unquote, has. The book is pseudo-epigraphical, and the author, who was not the prophet Ezra, basically attributes all of this as happening to the prophet Ezra, who lived multiple centuries before the actual author of the bulk of 2nd Esdras. I misspoke and said that the Most High Father God, quote unquote, wasn't really, because of the crazy stuff that's said, was the one who was interpreting the vision for, quote unquote, Ezra. I believe it was actually the angel Uriel, who, as we discussed in part 1, may be a fallen angel and not a good angel. Well, I just finished reading 2nd Esdras chapters 13 and 14, and it's no longer a question. 2nd Esdras is some straight up Gnostic, hoogie boogie, wretched, awful foolishness. I mean, it's like the inversion, the complete inversion of the story found in Revelation. And I'll give you it was like a punch to the gut when I started reading this stuff. This is the vision he has. As I kept looking, and this is starting at verse 3. Also, I was blown away when I went to the parallels that it sparked in my mind to Revelation chapter 13. And then I realized I was reading 2nd Esdras chapter 13. So it's like a direct correspondence. But it says at 13:3, this is 2nd Esdras. As I kept looking, the wind made something like the figure of a man come up out of the heart of the sea. What does that sound like? I'll tell you what it sounds like. It sounds like Revelation chapter 13, starting at verse 1. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads. And then skipping a bit to Revelation 13, verse 2. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. Now bear in mind from part 1 that the lion that quote unquote Ezra saw was supposed to be the Messiah. Well, this in Revelation 13, talking about the beast coming out of the sea, is talking about the beast system, or the Antichrist, the false Christ, there at the end of days. But then in Ezra, 2nd Esdras, hoogie boogie 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, he's talking about the quote unquote Messiah coming up out of the heart of the sea. And this is reaffirmed later on in chapter 13. As for this is at verse 25. This is the interpretation of the vision. As for your seeing a man come up from the heart of the sea, this is he whom the Most High has been keeping for many ages, aka the hoogie woogie boogie Antichrist. I added that last part. Oh, and it's reaffirmed that 2nd Esdras is talking about the Messiah, the quote-unquote Messiah, according to the pseudo-graphical Ezra. But I'll get to that. But it says at 13:30, and bewilderment of mind shall come over those who inhabit the earth. That sounds like the strong delusion that 2 Thessalonians talks about. That 2 Thessalonians not only talks about, but associates with the coming of the Antichrist. Then in 1331, we get into basically the birth pangs that the real Messiah, Jesus, Yeshua, talks about and describes when he's explaining to his apostles what the end of days is going to be like. 2 Esdras 13:31. Tell me if this don't sound like a bootleg counterfeit of the Olivet Discourse, or the portion of the Olivet Discourse that it sounds like. They shall plan to make war against one another, city against city, place against place, people against people, and kingdom against kingdom. When these things take place, and the signs occur that I showed you before, then my Son will be revealed, whom you saw as a man coming up from the sea. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the pseudo-epigraphical author of 2nd Esdras was not talking to Father God. He might have been talking to the archangel Uriel. He might have been talking about his son coming up out of the sea, like the Antichrist in Revelation chapter 13. But he was not talking about the Messiah, Yeshua, and his second coming. Wrong. And then earlier in chapter 13, at I believe it's verse 10, it talks about a multitude of people attacking the quote-unquote Messiah, Antichrist. But I saw only how he, the Antichrist, that's what I'm going to call him, sent forth from his mouth something like a stream of fire, and from his lips a flaming breath, and from his tongue he shot forth a storm of sparks. Now listen to how Revelation 13:6 talks about the beast from the sea opening its mouth. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. I wonder if the saints in Revelation 13:6 or thereabouts is the same as the quote-unquote multitude that the Antichrist blasted with his fire breath in 2nd Esdras. Now I've realized that this is probably going to have to be a 3-part series, because I've still got many miles to go in dissecting this hoogie-boogie fake apocalypse of 2nd Esdras. So, Father God bless you all. Jesus Christ saves, and stay positive. Now, I'd like to do a brief postscript on the late Nipsey Hussle. He was a rapper that was gunned down at 33, which is an interesting number. That's the occult hoogie boogie illuminized people that are temporarily in charge. That's one of their favorite numbers in the little weird numerology rituals they do. Lots of dead celebrities at 33. Jesus died at 33, so you know how they love to invert stuff. He apparently had rapped about a doctor who had cured AIDS and was going to do a documentary about this guy. And he was more positive than a lot of these Illuminati puppets. So not only was it potentially an Illuminati quote-unquote Illuminati sacrifice, but they also might have been trying to shut him up. Maybe he was getting too mouthy for the quote-unquote Illuminati. So he died on, allegedly, unless he was a death faker, he died on March 31st, 2019. Now, April the 1st used to be the new year, as we've discussed in a previous video, before genocidal maniac Julius Caesar changed it to January 1st in honor of his Hoogie Boogie Nephilim spirit god Janus. So maybe it was some kind of weirdo pagan New Year's Eve sacrifice. I don't know. Also, March 31st was the 90th day of the year. That collapses down into a 9. And you know, these weirdos love their 9s. Again, I don't practice this numerology stuff, but I know these Hoogie Boogie weirdos that are temporarily in charge love it. So I'm just speculating here.